right, welcome back to another edition of Bible Deep Dive. Today we are going to look at Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 18, getting ready for the sermon here this coming Sunday, the first Sunday in April. Again, we are on BibleArc.com. This is a text that I have not started reading commentary for, so we are going to freshly look at this passage together and how to break it down and get it ready for a Bible study or get it ready for a sermon. And hopefully it's beneficial to you to understand the text and also learn how to work through a biblical argument for your own personal study. So let's get into it. Let's read the text and then we will start breaking it down. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others preach from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. Okay. So, looking this over, there is a lot here talking about how Paul's imprisonment is actually a good thing. It's something that we talked about last week in chapter 1, verses 3 through 11, where Paul talks about his imprisonment as being a grace of God, and now he's gonna work that out a little bit more. He starts out by saying, I want you to know, brothers, and I'm confident that the word there means brothers or sisters, and the ESV just translates it as brothers. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me, being imprisoned, has really served to advance the gospel. Okay, so he is taking a negative situation, this imprisonment, something that we would think of as bad, and showing how really it's a good thing, that it is meant to advance the gospel, and there's many ways that it's doing it. And he's going to explain how it does it here in just a second. And it's beyond just him being in a jail cell and witnessing to guards and fellow prisoners. It's much deeper than that. It says that has really served to advance the gospel, so that, see, there's the purpose statement right there. It has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. So let's break that down just a little bit. I'm going to break this down because it's talking about two different people. It's been made known throughout the whole imperial guard and to the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. So we're going to connect these two here, that this is just a connection of two different ideas. Who has it been made known to? The whole imperial guard and all of the rest. It's been made known to them as well. So we're going to say that's a series. It makes independent contributions. They could both stand in this argument without the other. If you were to take out all the rest, it would still have the same thrust throughout the imperial guard. If you were to take out the imperial guard, the word rest, yeah, that sounds weird without the other descriptor here. But you get my point. These are independent clauses that could stand on their own. So that it's become known that the whole imperial guard and to all the rest, what has been made known? That my imprisonment is for Christ. So he has the gospel is advancing. Again, I'm just shooting from the hip here. I'm studying this for the first time with you without having consulted a commentary. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened has really served to advance the gospel. So it's become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest. Okay, so that might advance the gospel. in order that it has become known what has been known, that my imprisonment. Okay, so I am going to say that this is an idea explanation. What has been made known? Well, he explains it. My imprisonment is for Christ. Okay. So we have this idea of the imprisonment being good. Now we're going to connect these two here together. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me, being, put in prison, has been serving the gospel. So that. So when we look at, there's a difference between an action and a result. So the imprisonment is the action, and is the result that it's become known, or is it the purpose? I mean, that's the question, because you can see here that if we were to do action result, we can see that the so that, or with the result that, or it can be the purpose here. What is the intended result? He has been imprisoned so that it has become known. I guess this is a toss-up. I'm not sure what, and part of that would be the Greek. And so we would need to look in the Greek. In fact, let's do that. This is a tool that you may or may not have, Accordance Bible software. There's also Logos, but that's super expensive. Accordance is way more affordable, but it has some really, really good tools. So I think we're in verse 12. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has served to advance the gospel, is known to pure guard, and all the rest, that, so that. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so it's host day, and so we're going to look that up over here, and we're going to see, there it is right there, the host day. So we know that it is then a result. Okay, so here's what happened. Paul got imprisoned for Christ. And the result of that wasn't really a purposeful, it's just what happened. That the whole imperial guard, I mean, that's a lot. And then to everyone else, it is imprisonment is for Christ. He's not being imprisoned because he stole a Twinkie at the 7-Eleven or something like that. Like, he is in prison for Christ. And we also need to see here that this is not like a passive thing here either. Not only is it true that the imperial guard has imprisoned him for his faithfulness to Christ, but this is also God's plan for him too. So in a way, we could say that the Lord put him in prison. Why? So that the whole imperial guard can know that he's there for Christ, and gives him an open market there to talk with some of the higher levels of people in the Roman government. Opportunities that he probably wouldn't have otherwise had he been a free man. Okay. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Okay. This is one of those instances where you have most of the brothers, and then you have sort of the reason, the grounding statement in the middle, where I would probably reword this a little bit, and I don't think we're doing the text any disservice by doing this. But what I'm going to say is I'm going to take that, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to put this right here. Put a period there. Okay, so now this is going to be a much more fluid way to think about this argument. Most of the brothers are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Why? Because they have become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment. So let's see if there's a little break that we need. Most of the brothers are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Okay, so the manner that they are speaking this now. So this is another reason why Paul's imprisonment is such a good thing. That not only is the imperial guard know that the reason for Paul's imprisonment, but also that these brothers are bold to speak the word without fear. And so, had Paul not done that, had they not been encouraged by the fact that he was in prison because of this, they might not do it. And so, the without fear is the manner in which they are speaking boldly. So, I'm going to put that in. Again, I may be wrong. I'm probably wrong on some of the ways that we are bracketing this, but this is just an exercise to help us get our minds around what the text is saying. Okay, so they're doing this, and how did they muster up the courage to do that? Having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment. We could even flip flop these two sentences here too, of saying, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, most of the brothers are much more bold to speak the word without fear. So we could word this sentence in many different ways to think about how it all works together. I would say, though, that this is sort of a ground clause because he is explaining why something happened. And so with a ground clause, it's a statement or an argument or reason for that statement. We could easily say most of the brothers are much more bold to speak the word without fear, for they have become confident in the Lord, or they could say because they have become confident in the Lord. Sorry about the laughter there in the back room. We have the ladies for Soup for the Soul here today, doing some really cool things here at Emmanuel, and they get along and have a lot of fun. So my microphone is a little bit sensitive and picking that up. Anyway, so the reason that they can do this is that they've been encouraged in Paul's imprisonment, that the gospel is true. Everything that Jesus said is true. Everything that he said would happen is happening. And so now he moves on in verse 15 and following, kind of explaining the way or the manner in which the word is being bold to speak. He looks like he labels two different groups of people. He says some preach Christ from envy and rivalry. Man, it's weird, isn't it? You just wouldn't think that's the case, but I think what's happening. I could make a break here and do a series, but I'm really not sure that that's helpful to do that. Preach Christ from envy, preach Christ from rivalry. Whether or not that's necessary, I don't know. Let's see here. I'm going to put that there. Okay. So some indeed preach Christ from envy or rivalry. Well, what would that mean? Envy, jealousy. Jealousy of what? I think given the context of what happens down here, the former proclaimed Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. Man, this sounds so weird. But what I think is happening is sometimes in church life, there are people, leaders, pastors, whatever, that really suffer from a form of ministry envy and jealousy. And so Paul, I think, is talking about people within the church that are preaching from being jealous of Paul and trying to outdo him. Again, haven't read a commentary. This is just what it seems to portray. Before I make any other marks, I'm going to keep going on here. The latter, do it out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. That I am put here for the defense of the gospel. So there is an action and a purpose. Okay. well, let me see here. Let's go back to this and say that the latter do so others from goodwill, out of love, knowing that I am here. Out of love, the latter. For the defense of the gospel. That's what I'm looking at. For. Okay, so it's ice. It's a preposition. Yeah, there it is right there. Ice. Yes, so that is a purpose statement that they know that he is put there for the reason of the defense of the gospel. Okay, so cool stuff going on there. The latter do it out of love, and the manner in which they, or the reason for that they do it is, so we have a ground again. The latter do it out of love because they know that I'm put here for the gospel. Again, a ground, this is a ground clause, which means that it's like the reason for something. It is the opposite of an inference, where an inference is a statement or a reason for that. So it has, an inference usually comes on top, and an inference can be more of a main point, whereas a grounding is not a main point. Or couldn't be a main point because it is supporting what that main point is. And here we can see that the main point is that these people are doing it out of love. That is the big deal here. So it's not an inference, it's a ground clause. And so we have in rivalry out of goodwill. So we have these two different groups. We have one already labeled for the good guys. Some indeed preach. Okay, so we're just going to leave. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, I'm just shooting from the hip here. So here is the good folks. They're doing it out of love. They care for Paul. They see that this is proclaiming the truth of the gospel. Now, verse 17, the former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. Okay, so it seems to me what Paul is saying here is that these people who have the envy and rivalry towards Paul are not heretics. It seems as if they are preaching truth with a different motivation. Okay? So while that is still wrong and sinful, I think what we can take away from this is Paul is attesting to the fact that what they are saying is not wrong. Their motivation might be impure, but the content is not. Okay, so you see what's happening here? So the former, being those who preach out of envy and rivalry, do it out of selfish ambition, not sincerely. Okay, I think that they are, that he is just kind of doing an explanation there, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. Actually, I'm going to take that and say, no, okay, how I'm going to label this is going to be a little confusing. I'm going to say that this is a negative positive, okay? A negative positive is basically a two different statements, one that is in the negative and the other in the positive, that is in their grammatical structure, not in their content, okay? And what I mean by that is not sincerely is a negative statement because it has the not. In 17c here, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. That is not a, that is a positive statement because there's nothing negative in it. Content-wise, yes, it's bad to want to afflict someone, especially in their imprisonment, if it's for the gospel. So in its content, it is negative, but in its grammatical structure, it is positive. Okay? So that is the distinction here. And so they're not sincere. And he kind of works it out a little bit. They want to afflict me in my imprisonment. Okay, so now let's put this verse 17 together. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. And so I think this seems like it is I would say that this is an action, obviously, and this is the purpose behind it. Okay, this is the motivation. Their motivation is not sincere. So I'm going to say that it is the purpose. What then? Okay, so some indeed preach. Okay, so we have so far these two. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others do it from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that there's defense. The former. Okay, so here are the two contrasting gospels that are going out. We have the people that are preaching purely, the people that are preaching selfishly, and so I don't think. On the other hand, oh yes, alternative. On the other hand, look, it's right there. On the other hand, so we have an alternative. We have one group saying that, again, pure. Over here, not so much, but two different ways of preaching the gospel. But now here is what Paul does to sort of explain it out. What then? Why is this a big deal to Paul? What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. Okay, so he's talking about the results now. Now that we know that there are people that are impurely going about preaching this, there are people that are purely. How should we think about this? Paul is saying, you know what? To me, I don't really care, because whether in pretense, which is the false way to do it, or in truth, again, I'm going to put in an alternate because there's two different ways to do it. Whether these two things happens, man, Christ is proclaimed. Okay, that is the result. And that is what Paul wants. He wants the gospel to go forth. And so if people are getting saved at this juncture, yeah, motivations, God will deal with people's motivations. That's not Paul's concern. Paul's concern is that the gospel goes out, and what a great truth that is. And in that I rejoice. And how should we label that? Well, it seems to me that situation response would be good. Because here's the situation. The gospel is being preached. Paul's response, in that I rejoice. Okay. Some indeed preach. Okay, so now we have this one that is not yet labeled. We have all these other three down here, but not that one. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others goodwill. Okay. I'm going to put that but. Okay, again, I'm going to go to my Greek here and look at some indeed preach, but, so the word is day, others from goodwill. So we're going to look for that day. Allah, both, in order, te, excessive, day. Oh. Okay, a main clause that stands despite a contrary statement, also called adversative. Well, that would fit. Some indeed preach Christ from rivalry. However, some preach from... I don't think that fits. Well... Okay, yeah, because I would say... You could say yet. So some indeed preach Christ from rivalry and envy, yet others from goodwill. And then I think that he explains it here. So here's this idea that there are some punks out there that are preaching with bad motives, preaching truth, but not necessarily with the best motive. And there are some that are good. Let's work that out. The latter do it out of love, the former out of selfish ambition. Okay, so now we are starting to see the beginning work of a potential points for a sermon or a Bible study. I'm going to add arcs just so that we can start getting some visual representation here of what's going on now, because if the boxes don't make much sense, we can start graphically and visually seeing what points are what here. So I have 4, and I don't want 4. 4 doesn't seem right. Okay, so it seems like verses 12 through 14, we have Paul talking about that him being in prison is really good. Okay, the imperial guard knows the imprisonment is for Christ. And then in verse 14, he says another reason why it's so good, because like his imprisonment has encouraged these other guys to preach. And so I think those two are connected. And we can see now that there's going to be one big point here between verses 12 and 14. Now, how do these connect? I want you to know, brothers, so that it's become known, and most of the brothers are to speak without fear, okay? And so I would say it's a series. And the reason for that is that it's two reasons why it's good that Paul is in prison. It's not a progression. It's not growing towards something. It is 2 reasons why. It's not an alternative. It's not a both and. And so I think we're looking at a series here. And so I would, if I were, which I will be here in a little bit, looking at potential points, I would probably say that we could, it is good that Paul is in prison. Verses 12 through 14. Okay. Why is it good? It's good because the imperial guard knows he is there for Christ. And B, it is good. Imperial guard and I can't type today. Empire knows that he is there for Christ. I mean, he's a celebrity at this point. And B, it is good that Paul is in prison because it has encouraged believers in Philippi to speak boldly. If Paul can be in prison for it, man, so can they. Okay, so we have that together there. We could work on that in just a minute as about how we would put it into action steps and be a sermon point. But 2, and we can say that I'm just trying to think about how these 2 are connected then. What then? Only in that every way. What then? Only in that every way. Okay, I just screwed this whole thing up. So we're just going to delete this entire bracket here because I do want to say what then, only in every way, in pretense or in truth. So we have an alternative. Christ is proclaimed. We have an action result, and in that I rejoice. And we have a situation response. And then, well, let me do this. I'm going to say this here is a question and answer. Where is it here? Where is it here? Where is it? Concessive, bilateral, general specific, negative power question. They don't have it on here anymore. They used to have a question and answer, but they don't have it. Oh, here it is. Durr. Okay, so the question, what then? It's not rhetorical because he does answer it. And now we can have the situation response. So the whole thing is that Paul is rejoicing. I mean, this is really what it comes down to, is to him, his imprisonment isn't a big thing, because the gospel's going out. Because the gospel's going out, like he's happy. Like that is the big thing. Now the question is, how does this? Are these two independent ideas? Do I preach this as a point and then this as a point, or do I preach them all as, one big point? That's kind of what we need to settle on now. So we have the gospel going out, how it's doing it, some out of love, some out of selfishness. And Paul, it really doesn't matter. It seems like we can't really break these two up. It seems like they have to go together somehow. What if I did this? What if I took out this situation and response? We'll come back to that here in just a second. And we're going to connect these here together. So here is the preaching is going out. Christ is proclaimed. So I think that is the action and purpose. So all of these things, regardless of how it's done, the result, more so than a purpose, is that Christ is proclaimed. And in that I rejoice. Oh, I like it. I like it. I like it. So the point being that Paul, the biggest point here is that Paul has joy, because regardless of what happens, man, Christ is being proclaimed. But we see okay, so now here's what I'm really fighting through. So if we look at verse 18, is 18 independent of itself and connected all the way? Here, let me see if I can do that. And then I'm going to squeeze the text here just a little bit. Do these two sections, 12 through 12 through 17 go together, and then 18? I think. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. Whoops. That's fine. What if, and again, I could totally be wrong here. I probably am. And this here is going to be some indeed. How are they done? Action and manner. So we have the idea or an idea explanation. That could be another one. It could be an action manner. It's probably an idea explanation. I'm sorry that, again, I'm not giving you like concrete things here because there's a lot of gray area here. It could be an idea explanation. Why? The brothers have been able to speak more bold because of their imprisonment. Well, how does that happen? Well, some do it out of their love. They're ready to go to prison for Christ. Some are more bold because they are preaching out of their selfishness. They wouldn't do this if Paul hadn't been in prison. Okay? And so I think that is what's going on here. And then in 2, the explanation, the ways that the man, I'm sorry, I'm typing with a different keyboard again. The gospel is going out. And we have A through genuine folks, and we have selfish folks. Okay, and we are going to put that as verses 15 through 17. And then now we have our, now we have our third and final point is Paul rejoices that the gospel is going out, and that is verse 18. Okay, so now we're going to connect this to up here. We're going to do that, and now what then? We have a, so the gospel is going out. Why? Man, because Christ is proclaimed. Like, that is the goal. That is what we're going for. That's the intended purpose. Now, and in that I rejoice. That's a response. Now we're going to connect these two together. Again, if you're not tracking with me, hang in there. You'll get this as we go through Philippians. Then it's sort of a restatement of the final point. I've never seen this one yet. Again, they've changed Bible Arc over the last year and a half since I've been on it. This general and specific is new. I'm going to go with it just because it sounds really good with this. But I'm going to flip these because the specific is more up here. This is how the gospel is going out. Down here, this is how it is more generally speaking. And I think that this right here is the big deal. Oh, bummer. We don't have a red one here, but I'm just going to put that in that I rejoice. That's the big thing going on here, that this gospel is going out. Yeah. And so now if I were to break these up, let me see if I can move my screen over here. I'll even make myself bigger for you here. Looking at point 1, it is good that Paul is in prison. What would be an action that we could put that first sermon? Again, these probably aren't going to be my sermon points, so to speak, but they might be. Number 1, consider your suffering as a grace. 2, the ways that the gospel goes out, genuine folks, and I don't know yet how that's going to be actionable. I'm going to have to leave it there for now. But 3, rejoice that the gospel goes out. Number 2, consider your suffering as a grace. Rejoice that the gospel goes out. I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to have to read a little bit and figure out how I want to make it an action step. You could say, proclaim Christ with with. It would be in purity of heart. I don't know. It's what I'm going to go with, though. So, yeah, there we go. We are done with Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 18. Now, the more work goes into it now as I prepare to read up on some commentaries and figure out what's going on let's get a more clear spot for you here. Oh, there we go. Now, there we go. Okay. So now my task is to read, and then hopefully today is Monday, and then hopefully by Thursday I will already have my finalized points, and I will be writing on the sermon. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or let me know individually. I appreciate you being here and sticking with me for all this time, and look forward to seeing you in our next Bible Deep Dives next week, when we are going to look at Philippians chapter 1 again, and we're going to look at verses, the second part of verse 18, all the way down to verse 26. And so that's an exciting few verses there. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks. Bye.